Joining us now is Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, I'm interested in the questions that you're going to be pursuing, the line of questioning, and it's not really just about big tech. We've had people come on and just say that it's just tough to even contemplate any merger and what's going to happen with Lina at the FTC right now, that businessmen and women aren't even contemplating doing anything right now. What's the goal of this FTC?
Well, who knows, but we do know this. Surveys of the staff, when in the final year of the Trump administration, it was like 87% of the staff over there thought their leadership was doing things the right way, doing things in the proper way. Now it's down to like in the 40s. So the staff doesn't think things are going right. Certainly what's happening out there, she's 0 for 4 in cases she's taken to court. And I think, Joe, it all stems from this fundamental position that she adopts. She's against the consumer welfare standard. She's against what's good for customers, what's good for the consumer, which has been the standard for 40 plus years in this great country. And I think it's part of what's led to this amazing, the fastest growth in the American economy, the greatest economy in human history. And she's against all that because she has this sort of radical left ideology. But look, I guess she's going to now appeal the Activision Microsoft deal. I think that's wrong. She got the Northern District of California said that was, her position was wrong, as it's happened every other time, it seems. So we'll have questions about that. And frankly, I think we're going to have questions about the attack on Twitter. I mean, the 12 letters in 10 weeks' time, supposedly, as the pretext being this consent decree. I think it was attacking First Amendment free speech. And she's written things about her focus on, big tech and disinformation. That's a fancy way of saying she's going after certain types of speech, I think trying to put limits on the First Amendment.
Well, we almost had a ministry of truth, as you know. That they thought that was a good idea.
Scary.
And it went quite a ways before someone finally said, people have written about this, novels like back
they'd already named a director.
They have.
Yeah, they'd already named a director, Nina Jankowicz. We actually deposed her because this is crazy, as if some agency, that was in a different agency, but it's the same mindset, as if some agency can tell Americans what's appropriate speech, what isn't. Give me a break. That's exactly why we have a First Amendment, so that kind of stuff can't happen. Seems to me Lina Khan's bought into that. I think, again, crazy ideology.
So let me ask you this, though. So then there's a lot to unpack in all this. I think anyone would tell you that big tech has a lot of power. And on the flip side of what you were just talking about, they are able to decide what we see in a lot of ways. And I don't know whether they're de facto monopolies just from being so good or so dominant in some of their positions. Isn't there a place maybe for Chair Khan's stance that maybe if you just sit back and let anything happen, you do get the status quo that could be dangerous? And I think I've heard people say she's going to take big swings at these things, and she knows she might lose, but she thinks otherwise that stasis is not the way to do it, that there are antitrust concerns with some of these behemoths, and that you might as well give it a shot. If you lose, you lose.
Well, she's definitely losing. I mean, I don't know that she's won anything, and I think that's good for consumers, good for the country. We can see that in her record. But yeah, we should be going after big tech when they're censoring American speech and when they're colluding with big government, as the federal court just said last week on July 4th of all days, that this was going on. Our government was pressuring big tech companies to limit what Americans see, what they post, what they say, how that gets sent out, how that gets shared. They were doing all that, and the judge and the court slapped them down and said, no, preliminary injunction, you got to stop. And so that's where we need to be focused, not on stopping companies merging that's going to help the country and help the consumer. And that's the distinction. That's why that's what Republicans, we're all for stopping the speech. She's actually on the other side of that issue, and at the same time trying to stop any type of business merger going on that would benefit the consumer.
We also, at one point, watching this Microsoft Activision deal, we saw the UK, we saw the EU. It almost looked as if regulators in the different parts of the world were actually talking to each other. I guess that's okay. That's not against the law. But do you think that they're getting all getting on sort of the same page? I don't think we want to be like even the EU gave that go ahead on this. That's saying something, isn't it? Because they do. It's more about having companies. Yeah, it's more about having companies survive than the consumer benefiting. But even they, we left? Is she left to them?
Well, I don't know, probably. But I do know the Biden administration and the FTC under Lina Khan's management, they have allowed a European country to set up an office in California, for goodness sake. I mean, really? That's how it's going to operate now? You're letting some foreign country come in and set up an office that's going to regulate American companies? Look, I just don't think that makes a lot of sense, but that's the direction they're going. Okay. We'll have questions, I think, about that today in the hearing as well.
I saw you all over the place yesterday. Were you satisfied with Director Wray's, well, I was going to say with his answers, but did he really answer anything? I don't know if there were any answers.
No, it's more of the latter, and that's typical for the director. And he can or wouldn't answer all kinds of questions. But I do feel the biggest takeaway was what we learned about what's happening with Americans' data. He was asked twice, and it was interesting. By Democrats, he was asked, is the FBI purchasing data from data brokers, Americans' private data? Are they purchasing that? He said, I'll have to get back with you. I'll have to give you a briefing. Well, that's a little troubling. And then you couple that with the idea the FBI asked financial institutions, specifically Bank of America, to turn over debit and credit card purchases for a date and a geographic location and any purchases of a firearm. That's pretty frightening stuff, too. And we have that email from FBI to Bank of America asking for those things. So I think that was one of the big takeaways.
All right. Chairman Jordan, thanks.